instances I can shorten the long story that's behind it. Well, I have shared my testimonies on here about, I was in a car accident when I was 14 and I wasn't supposed to be able to walk, talk, or do anything, have children, surprise, I'm pregnant again. I wasn't supposed to be able to have all that. And I went through a bit of depression. And through my healing, I was dating somebody who was a terrible person, very abusive, and I shared that story of sexual abuse as well.
On a previous episode of Chalk Talk.
Yes, absolutely. And I was at a home church meeting, and my mom went to the pastor and said, you please, speak over Christine. She's been going through depression and going through some things, and since her car accident, and we see that she's really struggling right now.
And your parents didn't know about the abuse yet?
No, they didn't know about the abuse yet. This is about a year before I told them. And so we're at this home church meeting, and he comes around, he's praying over everybody, and then he comes to me, he's like, I can't pray for you. I can't pray for you because you've been involved with things. And it's just...
treated you like you were trash.
Yeah, like I was trash. Like I was the black sheep.
You're
I was
not
like
worthy of a prayer.
I'm not worthy of a prayer, and that it was my fault that I was in the car accident. Not the drunk driver, but it was my fault that I was out that night and being with my friends. And we weren't drunk. Nobody in my car was drinking. It was a drunk driver, and so I was like, oh well, okay, so it's my fault that I was in a car accident. It's my fault that I'm in an abusive relationship and I can't tell anybody. Okay, maybe things will get better if I marry the guy. That was part of it. And, I started to believe like this guy who manipulated me and isolated me and told me it was my fault. I started, well, maybe it is my fault. This is why I'm sexually abused. This is why, because I'm worthless. I'm nothing. That is one of the things that happened when somebody was saying, well, I can't pray for you because you've been involved with stuff. And I'm like, I don't know what I was involved with. I thought, okay, well, maybe it's my fault. Maybe I asked for it. And then the second one was a year later when I was able to break free from everything and tell my parents what was going on, tell my family. And then a few months after that, I was able to I got together with you. You and I got together, but you went down to Florida.
Yeah.
Like 3 months after we started dating.
Yeah.
And then I was
college.
Yep, you were in Florida going to college.
Dropped out promptly.
Immediately.
I made it 4 months.
You did. You got there. Well, I was at a church service, and it was a wonderful healing service because a woman stood up who was around my age, maybe a little older, and she gave her testimony about how she went through sexual abuse. And like her story matched mine, and it really spoke to me, and it was beautiful. And I was at this point starting to get my life back on track. I'm starting to feel happy again. I'm not depressed anymore. I'm starting to get my spiritual life back on track as well. Started praying again. I was just so thankful. And so here I am weeping in the service during prayer. And I was just so happy. Like there were tears of like relief, of healing. And like, oh, what this woman said, it's me. She knows what I've been through. Well, there was a woman standing next to me, not the same one who spoke, but she was friends with our family. And she leaned over and she said something in my ear that, well, you just need to open up your ears and so you can hear God. You're not letting him speak to you. And I was just like, all of a sudden, it just, wall went up, and I'm like, so God hates me. Okay. Like, she didn't even know why I was crying. She didn't know that this was a healing situation, a healing moment for me.
A positive.
Yes. Something where I was praying and thinking, God, thank you so much for bringing me through this. Thank you so much for everything. Thank you for bringing this person here tonight. And then that happened, and I was like, yeah, okay, no.
Yeah, of course. And when you're raised to believe, and listen, everybody on this panel, we all believe personal prophecies are possible.
Oh,
that
absolutely.
That can happen.
Yeah.
But it does get abused.
Not using wisdom, and
Right.
I mean, it hurt. It really hurt. I mean, I didn't stop going to church over it. I didn't want to go to church anymore because I was like, what's the next thing something's going to come out of somebody's mouth to say it's my fault?
Right.
You know?
And at the time, because of how you were raised, you believed that was God speaking through those people. So, I mean, of course, that would be incredibly confusing.
Yeah,
like,
I was. I was like, why do I feel so good? You know, I was feeling so good in this moment, this healing, refreshing moment of tears of healing. And then somebody is like, well, you just don't hear from God because you don't allow him to speak to you. It's like, that's not even close to what's going on right now. But okay.
I think sometimes people will get a thought in their head and they think that that's the Holy Spirit and they'll speak it over somebody. And that's not always the case. Like with this woman, you know, probably what it looked like to her was a lot different than what it is, but she saw you were having an experience, clearly wanted to be a part of that, and for, you know, whatever reason. And I'm not doubting that she probably did believe that God was giving her a message.
Sure.
But without that wisdom, that type of thing can be incredibly damaging. There are people that leave the church over stuff like that.
Oh yeah, I didn't want anything to do with anything anymore. Like, I mean, I still believed in God. I never questioned God, but I thought he hated me. I was like, wow, I really brought all of this on myself, and now God is upset with me, and it's just everything's my fault. I can't do anything right. And so yeah, it's hurtful, and that's part of the reason why we discussed this before. I am not that person. As social as I am not going to go over to anybody and talk to them. I am the one who smiles, and the only time I have ever opened my mouth is with Josh, and a few times because I know it was from God, and it all came to pass too.
Yeah.
You know, in the couple times I was like, this is what's going to happen, and it's going to happen quick. I don't have a date, but this is what's going to happen. And Josh is like, well, that's kind of cool. Okay, I don't think it's going to be that quick. And I was like, no, just watch.
She's talking about us coming here for Skywatch, because the first time that we came out here was to do a couple episodes, and just when we were here, we knew we wanted to be here. We knew we wanted to end up here. And I'm thinking, well, we're going to have to build a ministry. Maybe if I do that for 5 or 10 or 20 years, then maybe we can make enough money to move out here. Maybe we can have some kind of partnership with Skywatch or something. I'm trying to think of how all that would work. She's like, I don't think so. It's going to be a lot faster than that.
I'm like, you'll find out in the fall.
And and she doesn't ever say stuff like that.
And
like,
I didn't have a date. I said, you're going to find out this fall.
Yeah.
And
that's exactly what happened.
November 2015. Guess who gets an email?
Yeah, that's when Tom gave us the job offers. And I was like, oh, I don't have to build a whole ministry and do a whole thing. I can just, So that worked out really, really well. But yeah, and that rarely happens. But it's because she uses wisdom. She hasn't followed in the footsteps of people who abused her in the past. But she hasn't also just shut down completely either. She's learned from other people's mistakes, gained a lot of wisdom from it, and has learned now when God actually is giving a message, she knows what that sounds like. And when it's not often that it's something that powerful and extreme, but when it happens, it's just a surefire thing.
I'll say I'm glad that you summarized it with that, because I